Hey everyone, my name is Tyler. Thanks for tuning in. I'm sitting outside in my Gulfstream Friendship 197 BH camper that I built a DIY electrical system in so that I can run off grid without hookups or a generator for a decent long period of time as long as I'm not using the air conditioning. I'm going to go over my electrical system I did myself, go over the cost of everything, the breakdown of what everything costs, send you the links of everything if you want to build your own, and just go over the fact of if it's better for you to build your own power setup or if it makes more sense for you to just buy a power station and plug it in. Everybody's needs are different. This fits my needs, but if your needs are different, you might have a different answer. Stick around at the end of the video and we'll figure out what's best for you. So for the type of camping that I do, I'd say about 80% of it is without any hookups or any sort of power. Most of the time we're going to state parks in New Hampshire where there's no hookups. We're just running off the battery for the weekend. One of our favorite local beach campsites, the good campsites, the ones that are on the beach, have no electrical hookups, so you need to be self-sufficient in order to camp there for a while. We also bring it to my family's camp up in Maine, which has no hookups. It has a generator if you need it, but no hookups. So we basically built this to be self-sufficient for weekend trips, maybe a little bit longer than a weekend if needed, but for the most part, this is built to be self-sufficient just because of my needs. If you're camping at campgrounds all the time with hookups or generators, there really is no need for you to actually have an off-grid system. And just, I mean, you still watch the video to learn something about the electrical system, but it really doesn't make financial sense for you to spend $1,000, couple $1,000 on a system that you're really not going to be needing at all. I'm going to get into my system, break down the cost of things, see if you want to build something like this. That way you can get an idea how much it costs and the things that I used and how well they've worked so far, and get into it. So my electrical system is actually under here. That was what made the most sense for me. The electrical panel is right there, so it wasn't as much room to run the wires. So this cabinet normally has our pots and pans and stuff in it, but right now I have that lifted up so we can see underneath. So the main parts of an off-grid electrical system are the batteries, which actually store the power. These are two 100 amp hour 12 volt batteries. They're about $250 each, give or take, depending on if it's a Black Friday sale or not. But I paid around $250 for these each, which is about $500 in batteries. This is the 2000 watt Renogy inverter. That converts the 12 volt power to 12 volt DC power to 110 volt AC power. And that basically makes it so your wall outlets, your microwave, and everything like that will work. I only turn that on when I'm using that. Most of the stuff I use when I'm camping off grid is 12 volt stuff. The inverter cost me about $270. I've had to get it replaced because one failed on me, but they sent me a new one under warranty free of charge. I just had to prove that it was actually broken. And yeah, definitely recommend Renogy for all your accessories. I know there's another company called Victron. They're a bit more expensive, but Renogy's kind of the more mid-range stuff, and it's been working great for me besides that one failure. And even then, they sent me another one without any issues. So those are the two main things: the battery, the inverter, and then the solar panels that are on the roof, which I'll cut to now. So here we have two 100 watt panels. The 200 watt panel over there. Wires run into the fridge vent, and this is the fiberglass coating I use to make sure it doesn't get too hot from the fridge. I just have all the wires taped in place, and yeah, that's the actual solar panels on the roof. I use these. These are supposed to be used to tilt them, but I use wing nuts on them just to kind of elevate them. I don't like the way the other solar panels are kind of just, they screw the bracket to the roof, and if you ever want to change the panels, you can't. So I did it this way. That way I could just, if I ever got new panels, I can screw them right onto these brackets. To seal them, I actually used butyl tape, lap sealant on wherever the actual screws are. Keeps it nice and watertight. I haven't had any issues with leaks yet. But yeah, that's the solar panels right there. I have about 400 watts of solar on the roof of this thing. The first, I started off with two 100 watt panels and the charge controller. That kit was $150 and it came with this. And then I eventually upgraded another 200 watt panel, and that ended up being another $150 for that panel. But that's pretty much a majority of the system. It's the two batteries, the inverter, the solar panels, and the charge controller. A couple things here that are included, it's tough to see, are the two bus bars. You want to make sure you get good bus bars so you don't have any issues with the electrical. That right there is called a shunt, and that connects to this screen right here, which tells us what's going on with the battery life and stuff like that. This is really interesting to me because it can tell you how many amps, how many watts, everything you're drawing, how much is coming in, how much is going out. And that's really interesting to me because I never really thought about how much electronic accessories used. And so I just look at that all the time, especially things like our Starlink, which is a big part of why we have this off-grid system. It's to use Starlink. Use that to keep track of everything. But yeah, the shunt is there. I have a circuit breaker here that's right off the battery. That way, if we have any issues, we can it'll cut power. And then right here, I have the main battery shut off. That's important too. That way I can just turn the whole system off. And then down there, I have the transfer switch. So I'm going to go over that now. This right here is my manual transfer switch. This determines whether I'm using shore power or inverter power. So basically, the wire from the shore power runs to this switch on one end. The wires coming from the inverter run to this switch on the other end. And depending on if I'm here, that's powered by shore power, and if I'm on this side, that's powered by inverter power. So if I turn my inverter on, you can hear everything turning on, which I think that's like the microwave and stuff like that. But if I were to switch to this, everything 110, even though my inverter's on, it's not getting power from then, turns it off. So if I turn it to the inverter, that turns my microwave on. But that's just so that I can manually decide whether I want to be powered by my inverter or by shore power. Some inverters have an automatic transfer switch in them. I just prefer to have a manual one. That way, that's just one less thing that could fail. That's what I prefer to have. I used to have an automatic transfer switch, but I added the manual one in there for just ease of use. Right here is to turn the inverter on or off. That turns the inverter on, which makes the 110 accessories function as they should. So if we need the Starlink, a microwave, charging from a wall outlet, something like that, that's what the inverter would use. This always uses power, even when it's not actually charging anything. It just has a constant draw. So we're going to shut that back off. I only turn that on when needed. And then this is, yeah, you can see that change. Now I'm using only about 10 watts, even with the solar coming in. It's a very overcast day in December here, so not much sun. This is the main 12-volt shutoff. I can actually, I'll turn the solar off for now, so then we just shut this off. That shuts everything off, and then cuts off my batteries. That's what I do when I'm storing it. So we'll turn that back on. Then we got lights again. This is to turn on and off the solar panels, the charging from the solar. I turn everything off when this thing's in storage, but we'll turn that on for now. I'll go over the cost a little bit more. That way we can determine what makes more sense. Do you want to build your own power station, or do you want to just buy a power station? It's up to you. Let's go over the numbers now. All right, so now let's go over the numbers of how much all this stuff costs. So the main thing that cost was the batteries. They've gotten a bit cheaper since I bought them. Originally, I paid $250 each. Now you can find lithium 100 amp hour batteries for about $200 each. So that would be $400 for the batteries. The inverter is about $270. Again, I think I paid more for that, but that's what they cost now. That exact inverter is on Amazon at $270. Also have a spreadsheet for all of the items that I use to build my system with the links to purchase them in the description if anyone's interested to check that out. The transfer switch I actually got on eBay. I had a hard time finding one that I liked. But that was $42. It's like a marine transfer switch. I don't know. I had a hard time finding one that would fit what I needed it for. Most of them were like houses that were much more heavy duty than 2,000 watts on a camper, which is what I'd be using. Well, actually, more than 2,000 watts if plugging in from shore power. The lap sealant to seal the solar panels on the roof. A tube of that is about $8. The first solar panel kit, which included the charge controller and both solar panels, and it comes with brackets, but I use different brackets. I talked about that when I'm up on the roof. That first kit was $152. The battery monitor slash the shunt, that little screen that displays everything, that was just $54, which that piece is really sweet. That's one of my favorite things about the system because that just gives you a screenshot of basically how the whole system's working. The additional 200-watt solar panel, that was $145. That was just the panel though, nothing, no charge controller or anything like that. I just hooked that up to the charge controller I already have. The brackets that I use to mount the solar panels, that's this way so that they're lifted off the roof and you can undo them and replace them if you ever want to upgrade them in the future or anything like that. I didn't like the fact that you would have to take the brackets off of your roof and reseal them every time you replace the solar panel. So I figured I'd install permanent brackets and then I can take the solar panels off. But those were the brackets for 3 sets of them was $80.97. The switch for the solar, that was just $8. The Y branch for the solar panels to hook all the panels into one wire to run down from the refrigerator vent, that was $13.59. The shutoff switch, which I had to get a pretty high amperage shutoff switch, I don't remember exactly what it was, that was $15. The circuit breaker is $19, and the bus bars were another $19. So that brings us to a grand total of $1225.60 for everything. And I think I spent a little more money on that. Things have gotten cheaper since I bought them. I also included on the spreadsheet a couple of the tools that I used. It was the hammer lug crimper tool, which is basically you just hammer it and it crimps the lug. Those are for the big lugs. And I also had the smaller crimper. The hammer lug crimper was 1147. The smaller crimper was 2659, but that came with a bunch of lugs to crimp on there. Those tools, I don't think it's tools as part of the job. I mean, maybe you do, but anytime I buy tools, I buy them just so that I can have them because I do a lot of work in my garage and it's nice to have. So with the conclusion being that this total system was probably around $1,200, we'll say $1,300. What's the equivalent power station? What makes more sense for you? So the equivalent power station is $12.99 with a 350-watt solar panel that comes with it. So basically, they're the same price. And if you take into account that this took me 2 full days of labor, for the first day was, I did it in pieces kind of, so I'd say about 2 full 8-hour days of labor to install everything on it. So it's pretty obvious that it would make more sense to go with the power station. But many people don't go with the power station. They still build the solar kits in their camper. So why would anybody in their right mind do that? The main reason for me is that everything's modular and upgradable. If I wanted to get a better inverter, I could buy an inverter, swap that out, put a new one in. If I wanted to get more batteries, I could always add more batteries and change things like that. This is also built into my camper. I don't have to think about it. I just got to flip a couple switches when I get there and it's good. It's good to go. I don't have to carry it out of my truck, plug it in, things like that. I mean, it's not really that involved to plug in a power station, but it's just another thing to think about. I had my inverter fail on me when we were actually in Colorado on the beginning of our road trip, which is why we bought this camper, and it shorted out completely. And luckily, the lifetime batteries that I have a safety switch in them, and they cut power. But it took me a little bit to figure it out. But once I figured out the inverter was shorted out and we bypassed the inverter, we were fine for the rest of the trip. We didn't need an inverter on that trip because we weren't actually off-grid camping then. We had campgrounds booked because we were so far away from home. We wanted to make sure we were staying in like good places, not doing any questionable woods camping when we didn't know where the heck we were. And on really one of our first main camping, like our first camping trips we've ever done, we camped like twice before we drove across country with this camper. But yeah, the inverter failed, and when I got back, I contacted them. They sent me another inverter without any issues. But that's just something. If your power station, say your inverter on the power station fails, I don't know. I've never taken one of those apart, but I'm assuming they have something that works as an inverter. If that fails, the whole thing's junk. You either need to get a whole new power station. Well, that's it. You can only get a whole new power station. So that's why this is kind of nice. It's serviceable for someone like me who likes to build things and kind of make sense of how everything works. This is why I enjoyed it and I went this route. I'm actually building out a truck camper cap that sits in my pickup truck. Since now that I'm having a baby literally any day, I'm gonna have my own camping setup so that way I can go camping just on the kind of camping I like, which you can't really bring a newborn on. So I'm gonna probably be buying a power station for that setup because it makes more sense to be able to just grab a power station and go. I don't really want this electrical system built in my truck at all times. So for both applications, it really depends on what's best for you. For a camper, it makes more sense to build your own power system, especially when you're going big. You could basically just put a 3,000-watt inverter that'll run pretty much anything except for it'll run one air conditioner, maybe not two air conditioners. It'll run pretty much anything, and you can put as many batteries as you want if you're not limited in space like I am. I also want to let everybody know that there's a spreadsheet in the description which has the breakdown of everything I use to build this electrical system in this camper. The batteries, the inverter, the shunt, the bus bars, the switches, everything like that. There's a direct link in the description. If you buy something from the Amazon thing, I'll get a little cut of that, and I'll be forever grateful to you if anyone's interested in building something like this. It's really not that hard. I'm a semi-mechanical person, but I'm sure most people who have half an idea what they're doing with 12-volt electrical systems could definitely build one. Now that we talked about the benefits and drawbacks of either and how really they cost the same, but they have a couple different benefits. The main conclusion is price is about the same. The equivalent of a 2,000 watt hour, 2,000 watt power station costs about the same as building this system. So cost isn't really that important. They're about the same. It's just a matter of, do you want something permanently installed? Do you want something serviceable? Or do you want something you can just grab and go? Or do you want something that's just one unit simple? If you're not a handy person, you can't build an electrical station, which I like to think of myself a pretty handy person. I was a mechanic for about 10 years. So building things is fun to me. It's interesting to learn new things, and I can trust that I'm not going to burn my camper down when I build one. Obviously, if you think you might burn your camper down, then don't build a power setup. Definitely just buy a power station. That's the best option for you. So again, the answer, there really is no clear-cut answer, but for me, it made more sense to build my own power station for about $1,200. I've gotten my money's worth definitely out of this. We camped at our beach campsite for a whole week. We had a beachfront campsite, and we were running the Starlink the whole time, and it worked absolutely flawlessly. The one thing we couldn't use was air conditioning, but since we were by the ocean, it didn't matter. The weather was absolutely beautiful every day, and we had all the power we need. We were watching Netflix at night, and I didn't even turn the inverter off at night. So yeah, conclusion is really whichever you prefer. They cost about the same. One takes a little bit of labor. If you're like me, you enjoy building things, build a power station. It's cool. You learn some stuff while you're doing it. If you just want something that you can just grab and plug into and you want the simplest thing possible and you have a little extra money to spend, just buy a power station. It's up to you. There's videos of building DIY power stations. They literally are the same thing. It's just a matter of packaging. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, I'm going to get into more off-grid and camping things. That's pretty much what my channel is going to be centered on. It's something I enjoy. I learn a lot about it. I just got a new diesel heater in today, so we're going to do some testing on that before I go camping in my garage, because my garage has no source of heat. Pretty excited about that. We're going to go fire that thing up soon because I have no heat in my garage, and I've been living here for 4 years, I think. And whenever I have to do something in the garage, it's just cold, and I just try to do it as fast as I can. That's my plan for staying warm in the garage, is just getting out fast. So yeah, if anyone's interested in any of that stuff, please subscribe, like. We're gonna keep this rig rolling. We're gonna keep making videos, and hopefully you guys are either learning something or enjoying it. I can definitely get more into this electrical system if you want. Yeah, thank you very much for watching. Have a good one.